right. Welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our two speakers for tonight's webinar in our Best Practices series, and I thank you all for being here. Dr. Gulapalli Rao and Dr. Beulah Christie will be sharing their vast experience and knowledge on best practices in operating a tertiary low vision center. Dr. Rao, a world-renowned ophthalmologist, is the founder and chair of the L.V. Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad, India. He established this prestigious institute in 1987 when he returned to India after a successful career in the US as an academic ophthalmologist. Dr. Rao, as we all know, has several academic and research achievements to his credit, too numerous to name here, and he has won many accolades in recognition of his contribution to the field of ophthalmology. But his many accomplishments don't just end there. He's also actively involved in serving his profession by being on the board of many national and international organizations. On a personal front, my memories are laced with the fondness with which my late father, Dr. B.T. Muscati, who was a mentor and guide to Dr. Rao, always exuded when he referred to him. So today, I am very happy to welcome Dr. Rao to our platform, and I'm sure you're really going to enjoy his presentation. Our second speaker, Dr. Beulah Christie, holds the distinction of heading the Institute for Vision Rehabilitation that focuses on providing low vision and rehabilitation care across the L.V. Prasad Institute's network. Dr. Christie earned her doctorate in vision sciences from the University of New South Wales in Sydney. She has extensive experience in community outreach services and was instrumental for CBR projects in the rural Andhra Pradesh and Telangana states in India. This, combined with her training and experience in working with early intervention for individuals with vision impairments and multiple disabilities, adds to the richness of knowledge she brings to the field. I know Dr. Christie has a lot to share with us as well, so welcome, Dr. Christie. It is our honor to have you with us today, and we're so looking forward to both these presentations. So I'll turn it over to them. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lubana. And Dr. Christie, at this time, you can share your presentation and get started.
Can you confirm if you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, all. Very warm greetings to you all from the Institute for Vision Rehabilitation. The implications of vision loss are multidimensional, affecting one's lifestyle in almost all aspects, beginning with issues in psychological well-being. People with vision loss confront challenges related to performing day-to-day functional tasks, education, employment, mobility, and socialization.
Hello,
Vision
Dr.
rehabilitation services have a key role in mitigating these negative consequences.
Hello, Dr. Christie.
Evidence suggests, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Excuse me, yeah, please.
No, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I believe Dr. G.N. Rao was going to say
Ramakrishna Garu?
Yes, I believe Dr. G.N. Rao was going to say a few words before the presentation.
No, I think...
Sure. We can continue later on.
No.
We can go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Ramakrishna Raju Garu, for the kind invitation to come and share some of our experiences in the area of low vision rehabilitation in the LV Prasad Eye Institute network. As most of you perhaps know, global blindness is a major public health problem. As per the most recent estimates, about nearly 300 million people in the world have some sort of visual impairment. That makes them functionally inefficient. Of these, nearly 80 million have irreversible forms of vision impairment. And these are the people that require low vision rehabilitation services throughout the world. Two particular groups of population are more vulnerable. One is the geriatric population, and this population is increasing rapidly, and by 2050, this problem in this age group is supposed to double. The second age group is children. Nearly 6 million children in the world have problems of low vision. Of these, 80% live in the less developed countries of the world. But if you look at the entire spectrum of eye care, we now talk of universal eye health that encompasses prevention programs, promotion of eye health, treatment of diseases and problems, and of course the rehabilitation. And if you look at it, while in most developing countries the prevention programs happen sporadically, not very well on a continuing basis, the treatment part happens in few islands of excellence, and the standards of care vary significantly from one place to the other. And in the area of rehabilitation, the record is very poor. We hardly have any good quality low vision rehabilitation programs in most developing countries. In India, according to the last estimate carried out a couple of years ago by the government of India, puts the figure of people around 8 million blind. That is a vision acuity of less than what we call 360 or 2400 in the American terms. But if you look at the age groups, nearly a little over 1% of all people above the age of 50 have vision impairment. And those below age 50, this percentage drops to 0.5%. So that's the rough estimate of the size magnitude of the problem in India. One of the things that we did when we started LV Prasad Eye Institute was to start on the foundational values of reconciling excellence with equity. That is, the best quality care and making it available to everybody, irrespective of their socioeconomic status and whether they pay or don't pay. To that extent, we now have the philosophy, and that started from 1987 and continued. Anybody coming to any of our campuses for any eye problem shall be taken care of, irrespective of the complexity of the problem and the cost of care. And we've been fortunate, we've been able to deliver that. And when we began, we started with clinical care, tertiary care in Hyderabad, that then extended to education. Education started in parallel with clinical care and clinical research. And we always had this intention of incorporating and integrating rehabilitation as a component of our eye institute. And a couple of years later, we have started the rehabilitation services. In fact, 3 days ago, we celebrated the 28th anniversary of our vision rehabilitation program. It started as a small center, then it grew, and through the support of a nephrologist who lives in Detroit, Dr. P.R.K. Prasad, we could build a center for vision rehabilitation in those years. And then a local family, Deshpande family, supported us to start the low vision services. Together, they contributed significantly over the years. Nearly 200,000 clients were served in all these years. In addition to the center-based services, Beulah Christie and her husband Jakin began the journey of community-based rehabilitation. When they both moved to the rural areas of Andhra Pradesh in West Godavari district and actually lived there, I think, for a period of about 4 years or so, and screened a population of nearly 1 million people on community-based rehabilitation programs. That was the beginning of our CBR, and that continued since then. So LVP, I was told, was that I did not realize, became in some sense the first institute anywhere to have vision rehabilitation as an integral part of an eye care institution. And that commitment continued till today. We are very proud that about 3 years ago, this has graduated to the stage of an Institute of Excellence in our new strategic plan of developing multiple institutes of excellence covering important areas, niche areas related to blindness and vision impairment. And Institute for Vision Rehabilitation happens to be one of them. And Beulah has an unusual background. She came from a rehabilitation background, did exceedingly well, very committed, and she kept on expanding. And for the past decade or so, we are into multiple disabilities beyond blindness, blindness associated with other disabilities. So overall, we have done well in this area. And everything that we do at LVP has a few components. One is the patient care or the client care. Second is education in that particular area, that is education of professionals in that particular area. Third is research, a strong component of everything we do at LVP. Fourth, in the area like rehabilitation, we also do significant advocacy, both at the national and global levels. And we have a technology innovation center. Through that, we also actively pursue product development. The idea being the best of technology, benefits of best of technology to the most marginalized people in the world. So with all these components, I think our Institute for Vision Rehabilitation is progressing well, and we are proud of the work that they do and a very committed team. And now I leave it to Beulah to take you through the journey and also describe some of the components of our low vision rehabilitation program at our Hyderabad campus. We now have a large network of 4 levels of centers. The Hyderabad center we call the Apex, that is Center of Excellence. And then we have 3 tertiary centers in Bhubaneswar, Visakhapatnam, and Vijayawada. And then 20 secondary level rural eye centers covering 4 states of Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Karnataka. And to them, each of them are linked 10 primary care vision centers. So we have nearly 190 vision centers now spread across these states. This large network helps us in a significant way. And I think in the present day context of COVID, when eye camps will probably become a thing of the past, we are really set up to provide services because we are there in the communities, serving the communities, and nobody has to travel where we are longer than 50 kilometers. So I think Beulah and her group also set up low vision services at each of these levels. And Beulah and her colleagues have also contributed to the development of some guidelines for the World Health Organization in this area. So thank you very much. And I now leave it to Beulah to go into the description of what all we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Beulah, it's all yours.
Yep. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, we can see the screen.
It's not coming up here. And yeah. So thanks, Dr. Rao. I think you have addressed everything. There's nothing much for me now to speak. So we all know the vision rehabilitation services have a key role to play in mitigating these negative consequences of blindness and low vision. Evidence suggests that up to 90% of people with vision impairment can potentially benefit from services. However, in reality, worldwide, the current utilization is limited to less than 10% only due to several barriers. The consequences of poor access to the intervention will impose restriction on activities and participation, resulting in a poor quality of life. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the slides. Give me a minute.
No problem. Please take your time. Yeah, almost every presentation has to have one technical glitch at least. Otherwise, it won't be complete. So this is quite common. So just take your time. If necessary, you can actually stop and restart the presentation and share it again.
Yeah.
Which page down?
It's not coming.
No, just click here.
Stuck, I think. So. Can you stop and then?
No, just click there. Page down here. From page down you can.
Here it's coming.
Dr. Rao, that was very, oh, got
Thanks,
the slides up. Come on, okay.
Yeah, the slide is up. You see a triangle now.
Challenges. Yes. So one of the biggest challenges for underutilization of low vision care is poor service coverage at all levels. If we look into WHO's estimates on the needs of low vision population, about 80% of them can be served at primary and secondary level itself, and only 20% will require advanced care at the tertiary level. Unfortunately, in many countries, the integration of the low vision care at the primary and secondary level is still lacking, leaving a vast majority of people with low vision to remain underserved. Therefore, strengthening services at primary and secondary levels will be the first and important strategy in providing the best care at the tertiary level. So when this is said, the immediate next step forward for us to focus on is designing the service model. Having a clear understanding of who delivers the care, what components of services, what are the process and methods, what equipment, and who are all the key stakeholders. So this understanding will help us in setting the right kind of services. So to help the organization's functions best to their core, the World Health Organization framed the International Standards for Vision Rehabilitation. These guidelines helped us tremendously in improving our services. At our institute, we brought a lot more new components after going through these guidelines. We changed our approach in a few areas and found overall benefits in many aspects. So now briefly, let me take you through the WHO's international standards for the tertiary level. Actually, the guideline framed is for all levels, primary and secondary. For today's presentation, let me take you through the tertiary level. I hope this will help enhance your practice as well. So to introduce the background of vision rehabilitation standards, this is the framework based on 3 important declarations, which are Article 1 and 26 of the UN Conventions on the Right of Persons with Disabilities and the Global Disability Action Plan 2014-2021. So the key focus areas of these standards include providing universal access and equity regardless of disability, creating the opportunity to develop to the fullest potential possible, promoting early intervention and accessible education for children, ensuring the right to get the intervention, empowering the individuals and their families, and finally, the advocacy skills for all age groups. The vision standards recommends to encompass 5 core areas at tertiary level. As Dr. Rao mentioned, this includes service delivery for individuals, education and training programs, creating awareness and advocacy on disability rights, research initiatives, and works that are related to innovation and product development. So let me explain this framework a bit more in detail using examples of our activities at LV Prasad Eye Institute. I hope the experiences that I'm going to share will help you incorporate some of this in your practices. There are different models of low vision service delivery in practice. Many of the current practices are largely focusing on the provision of optical low vision devices alone, without adding services to meet the evolving functional needs of the patients like self-care, communications, orientation, mobility, food preparation, shopping, financial management, and in many other areas. So this incomplete services can help a person only to a certain extent, but still making him or her dependent on others. Therefore, the international standards emphasizes incorporating a more holistic rehabilitative approach at the tertiary level. So service delivery is one of the key areas in which probably many of us are already doing very well in one or more components. But we need to understand, we need to question ourselves, is our approach comprehensive? Are we able to provide holistic care to meet the needs of our clients? Or are we compromising on certain areas but not providing the required services? So when we plan new activities, sometimes we may wonder which services take priority. Should we do this or that, or just leave something? So the simplest solution for all of this is to looking into the 3 broad categories of people who might require the services. So these 3 groups are, firstly, those people who have either severe visual impairment or blindness and who have complex rehabilitation needs. And the second group of population who have some amount of functional vision, the low vision group, whose vision can be improved through the low vision devices. The third one is the unique population, which presently most tertiary level centers do not look into. Evidence shows that 1/3 of children with visual impairment having either developmental issues or some form of disabilities. Therefore, at the tertiary level, there should be programs to meet the needs of people with all categories of vision loss, and the component should cover all of these aspects: adjustment to vision loss, economic rehabilitation, educational rehabilitation for school-going children, social rehabilitation for all age group again, the low vision intervention, and the early intervention program for children with developmental delays and disabilities. So adjustment to vision loss. Effective counseling helps individuals and their families learn how to cope and accept with vision loss. So I would like to emphasize on certain key points to remember during our counseling. When we begin the counseling, when we talk to the parents and the family members, avoid using medical jargons as far as possible. Explain the diagnosis in a clear layperson's language so that they can understand it clearly. This will help them pass through the adjustment stages easily. Just saying your vision loss is due to so-and-so RP or macular degeneration will not help them. And if you're not understanding this part clearly, this may delay the rehabilitation process as well. The second important aspect is to explain the visual prognosis without hiding the facts. If it is a degenerating medical condition, then the needs to be explained without giving any false hope. So it's a good idea to have both individual and family counseling based on the situations. So that will help them understand and then come out with acceptance stage quickly. The World Health Organization standards of low vision care at tertiary level emphasize providing advanced care by the well-trained professionals at the tertiary level. At this level, the optometrists trained on low vision care are expected to play a key role in designing the intervention. They are expected to conduct complex assessment tests, prescribe appropriate devices from a wide range of optical, non-optical, and electronic devices, providing training in the use of prescribed devices. That is very important. Just prescription alone will not help them to use the devices. And finally, they should take the responsibility of developing good links to education and rehabilitation services. So to practice good clinical low vision care, I recommend following the guidelines of the American Optometry Association on care of the patient with low vision. So we can find the clear details of right from history taking up to the prescription of devices, and the entire management can be learned from this manual. The educational component of services should include programs to ensure the continuum of education, guidance on the selection of learning media, environment modification in the classroom and home, instructional training in the use of recommended low vision devices, and strategies to overcome peer pressures are some of the important aspects of training to consider. For those children with severe visual impairment, where required, the plus curricular activities, means to say the braille skills, the abacus, tailor frame, and use of other such gadgets should also be taught at the tertiary level centers. So being a resource center to provide books in an accessible form, large print, braille, and audio is another important component of services to be integrated at the tertiary centers. This initiative will help students enhance the quality of their education, thereby improving their employment opportunities in the future. Training on assistive technology is another area to be considered, as this is going to be a real game changer for people with visual impairment in future. In LVPI, we provide comprehensive training and support in computer, mobile, and other related technologies. This training and access to specialized technology increase their opportunity for educational enrollment, and in case of working age adult, it helps them in their workspace, and overall it is helping them increasing their personal independence. Enabling social independence is another important training component to be delivered at the tertiary level. The training should include everything that matters to help a person to be inclusive in the society. This component encompasses several training areas, including independent living. It could be the basic things like personal hygiene, clothing skills, or handling money, mobility techniques, health management, communications. So every single task that one would do in a daily schedule should be taught to these people. If the model of rehabilitation service delivery is hospital-based, or if that model has some linkage with other local hospitals, then this component must be integrated. We all know early childhood is critical, as it lays the foundation for functioning in developmental domains, and children born with developmental delays and disabilities have the potential risk of missing their early childhood experiences. Such children and families must be assisted with timely intervention, else their difficulties can lead to lifetime consequences and profound exclusion. From our data, we found around 12% of children in the age group of birth to 12 years having some sort of developmental delays and disabilities in one or more areas besides their vision impairment. Some disabilities in conditions such as ROP, cortical visual impairment. The rehabilitation approach for these children requires support from a group of experts, beginning with an assessment of their functional vision. They require professional support and training from the multidisciplinary team like low vision specialists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, special educators, and many others. WHO's vision standards strongly recommends adding this component at the tertiary level. Therefore, based on the number of children expected to be attended at the tertiary center, we need to plan either part-time or full-time therapies as a part of the low vision care. The rehabilitation process is considered incomplete if economic independence is not enabled for the working age population. Finding meaningful employment opportunities for the visually impaired is not an easy job. However, thanks to the power of assistive technology, now more new avenues have opened up for them in areas of IT, hospitality, retail marketing, bank sector, and in many other areas. So the increased awareness among the employers on the benefits of recruiting visually impaired and the trust they develop on the skills of these people is slowly changing their mindset to welcome them in an inclusive work environment. So the slide that you're seeing are some of our clients who have been assisted with job placement post their training. While computer literacy is a tool for employment, the same can't be applied for all. We should remember a majority of our clients, especially from the developing nations, are from a rural background with poor literacy skills and with poor economic background. As economic independence is equally important for them, we need to work on other livelihood through self-employment or training on rural trades and crafts that can add some income to their financial need. Coming to the equipment and human resources that are required to set up the tertiary level, a team of trained professionals, including optometrists, rehabilitation counselors, other therapists, instructors, are expected to involve in the care. And the devices available should include a full range of optical, non-optical, and electronic devices. And the services provided should include all advanced care, as we discussed, including the early intervention care for children with special needs. Or at least appropriate referral to other centers if we don't have our own therapeutic unit. For more details on equipment and human resources, I refer here the IAPB standard list. So the list is so comprehensive. Again, from this list, you can find all that equipment and then human resources that are required to set up the units for primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. One of the major barriers to accessing low vision care is the non-availability of trained personnel to deliver services. So the biggest responsibility of the tertiary level center is to conduct education and training programs for different careers of personnel. There should be training programs for everyone involved in the service, right from the grassroots community worker up to the ophthalmologist. For the beginners, those who are interested in initiating the education and training, I suggest referring the training curriculum of IAPB. As you may see from the slide here, there are well-defined modules for training ophthalmologists, optometrists, teachers, CBI workers, and refractionists from the IAPB website. So towards this effort, at our institute, we are conducting many long-term and short-term programs for the eye care professionals, school teachers, community workers. If any of the participants of this webinar are interested in our programs, either to participate or to conduct similar programs in your respective region, we will be happy to guide you further. Lack of awareness on the benefits of low vision rehabilitation services among various stakeholders is one of the challenges for poor utilization of services. The WHO's International Classification of Functioning outlines that it is not just the personal level of functioning and the services that influence the ability of persons, but it is the combined contextual factors such as attitudes to disability, the accessibility of the environment, and the legislation that makes the higher impact. This can happen only through a collaborative approach, networking with regional, national, and international stakeholders. To promote these initiatives, we at our center are organizing periodical workshops, meets, forums for the parents, teachers, eye care professionals. So these forums are helping us disseminate information and also helping us to provide an opportunity for them to interact and discuss their thoughts and ideas with one another. Our dedicated helpline is another impactful service towards promoting awareness and advocacy on disability rights. Similarly, engaging community volunteers. This is also helping us in all our efforts. Our volunteers are our great source of strength. We have over 1,500 registered volunteers actively engaged in our various services and helping us disseminate this rights of disabilities. The component of research is often neglected at the tertiary level, but the international vision standards insist on observing research as an integral component of activities at this level. It's a good idea to begin research with assessing the current rehabilitation needs and gaps relevant to the individual centers before we get into larger research. This need analysis will help us understand the strengths and limitations of our own program and modify them accordingly. To conduct the need analysis, I recommend using the WHO's STARS, a tool designed for this purpose. STARS is the questionnaire-based tool. It's very simple and easy to administer. So, and the best part of the tool is that it can be repeated at a shorter time of interval to measure the progress so that you can reset your goals accordingly. The other areas of research contribution could be impact of vision loss, quality of life studies on eye diseases, evidence-based models for service delivery, newer technologies, and other outcome studies, and universal designs of materials and environments. Again, it will be a good idea to have a collaborative approach with other organizations to begin in research area. The final component of activities to be added at tertiary level is innovation and product development. Technology truly can empower visually impaired in numerous ways to perform their tasks independently. A wide range of devices is already existing. However, the reach of it for practical use is limited only to a segment of population because of issues related to its affordability and procurement. Another important concern is some important innovations stop at the prototype level itself, as it is being taken as project assignment merely for study purposes. In some products, the quality is not up to the expectations. These are some of the concerns that tertiary level centers should look into by collaborating with innovators and developers. So the model of tele-rehabilitation, as Dr. Rao addressed, is important, crucial at this point of time. Telemedicine is nothing new. So during the COVID emergency, we initiated the tele-rehabilitation model to ensure the continuity of care. And ever since the lockdown, we have been practicing this. We are using the digital platform to connect with our children and adults. And there are challenges, but then we are quite successful in meeting our goals. So before I conclude, I would like to share these few references for further reading. I also want to promise you can count on us for any support in expanding or strengthening the services in your particular center. We'll be happy to help you. You can note down our email ID and the helpline contact number to contact us further. Thank you, Ramakrishna Garu, for this wonderful opportunity to share our experience with all the participants here. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. So let us see if people have questions. Lubaina, have there been any questions in the chat?
No, just a comment
Okay.
from Dr. Gogate,
Okay.
Pune,
So I'm going,
appreciating the work.
so at this point, thank you, Dr. Gogate. Dr. Gogate is from Pune, and he's one of the Vision 8 partners in CECF Pune. So at this point, if anyone has questions, you can unmute your lines and you can ask the question. Let me see. I may have to unmute everyone. Aparna, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so all right. So you don't have to be a co-host to unmute yourself. So anyone can unmute themselves to ask a question at this point. And while people are thinking about this, I have a question about your VIMD interventions. Dr. Beulah, you had mentioned about like the integrated functions provided by speech therapists and other services like physical therapy and so forth. Are these available in all of the LVPI locations, or is it in Hyderabad? I mean, this integrated component for VIMD.
Yes, Ramakrishna Garu. What we are doing is like at when Hyderabad campus, we have 2 each for all specialty areas, 2 physiotherapists, 2 special educators like that. And in other campuses, Vizag, Vijayawada, MTC, we have part-time visiting therapists coming thrice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And in the network, to say the CBR, community-based rehabilitation, the secondary centers, the field workers are provided required training, and the therapies from the tertiary level and the secondary level, they are going and then meeting. The basic assessment is done by the field staff, and the management plan is designed by these therapists who are traveling. So these therapists will visit all the centers by rotation, at least twice a month. So that way they're able to meet the needs.
Yeah. And do
and
you
then
have
the thanks to the technology again, we have the EMR records available with us so that we can every day review the records and then see like what practical management is provided and then make necessary corrections accordingly.
I see. Very good. And just one follow-on question about VIMD. Do you have an estimate that roughly of the total number of children you see at LVPI, what percent would be VIMD? I mean, if you don't have an exact number, just an approximate.
Right. So, but as I mentioned, we did a study of this population. A total number of 1,500 odd children visited the center with visual impairment in a period of 6 months' time. Mm-hmm. In that, 12% of children are having some form of developmental delays or disabilities.
12%?
Yes, I can share you that paper. Recently, we have submitted that for IJO. I can mail you the data also, like, which condition, what kind of disability is associated. So that information is available.
Excellent. Yeah, I would love to read that paper.
Yeah.
Dr. Christie, there is a question from Dr. Gogate. He asks, are there corporates or government agencies that provide employment to visually impaired people on priority basis?
Yes, definitely. Especially, after the computer training, the opportunities are more in the government sector as well. And similarly in the banking sector also. But those who are illiterate from that background, not much opportunities at the government level available. So for them, we have to think of other strategies like, self-employment for other trades. But yes, there are opportunities at government level and Group C, Group B level. So we are giving additional coaching and then we are giving required study materials for them to prepare for those exams.
Okay, very good. I have a follow-up question. You'd mentioned teleservices.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, you've used this model right now, not out of choice, but because of the COVID situation. What do you foresee in the future that you know, how successful has this model been? And do you feel like you can get more outreach now that you've established a model?
I really don't have an answer for that, ma'am. We have to explore right now the services that we are offering is for those who already visited us, and then since now we have restarted the services at the center, we are able to consult the parents, those who are coming for the first time also, like, since this is going to be the future, you have to connect us through the, through whatever modes that are available, Skype or WhatsApp, whatever is available for them. But then as you're saying, like, this may be a challenge at the rural network. But for us, the advantage is since we already set that platform, we have the secondary centers and the vision centers available, and we already have the trained field workers who are there presented in the community. The continuity of the training shouldn't be a problem for us. We can make it out. But then any new person who wants to avail the services for the first time, definitely it's going to be a challenge. Firstly, without making a proper medical diagnosis, we cannot start the services. And then at that level, educating the parents, making them learn how to use the technology, and then the net connectivity, how far they can do, how far they perceive this as their priority given the situation. So this is definitely going to be a challenge.
Absolutely.
But for the tertiary level, we are able to handle easily by making videos. What we are doing, one person plays a key role, like connecting the parent, and then through video call, just observing what are the issues, everything, making a detailed history, and then share it with the group. And then relevant therapists, they pitch in. So one person should play a key role in connecting the therapist with the parents, and then that's how presently we are managing. As I said, it's challenging. Sometimes parents, they take it, advantage. They say, no, my child is sleeping. No, call later. We understand their issues, but then there are other children waiting. You don't know, like, whether you have to wait or leave. So there are many challenges, but then this is the way forward, I think, that we have to plan it.
That is true. And I think you answered the next caller's question. Justin Phillips had asked, what challenges have you faced with regard to tele-rehab? So I think you just covered that. So thank you. Yes, it is, I do tele-rehab right now. I work in a public school, and it's certainly got its fair share of challenges, I think, as all professions are discovering. So thank you for your answer.
Somebody's asking how many tertiary centers I can give. Maybe Dr. Rao can answer. I know only LEP's tertiary level centers. Dr. Rao.
I'm sorry?
Someone asked how many tertiary level centers in India?
I think in a theoretical sense, every medical college department of ophthalmology is supposed to be a tertiary center, but hardly any of them have any low vision services.
Mhm.
Probably those who are providing low vision rehabilitation among the tertiary, I don't know, probably maybe a dozen.
So is there any mandate, Dr. Rao, by the All India Ophthalmic Society to provide this low vision?
I don't think this is on the radar of the All India Ophthalmological Society. Nor is it on the radar of any ophthalmological society in the world. It's not just All India.
Correct. We have.
I tell you a story about the famous retina specialist from London called Alan Bird, very renowned at Moorfields Eye Hospital, the oldest eye hospital of the world and the famous one in London. So Alan told me a few years ago, he was visiting us. He said, we have now become the second institute in the world to integrate rehabilitation after you. Then I asked what prevented you all these years. He said the biggest barrier was ophthalmologists. They didn't want rehabilitation services in the hospital. So I think part of the problem is in our education. We are not exposed at all to rehabilitation during our ophthalmology training. And the same holds good for optometry too. Hardly any optometry school lays emphasis on rehabilitation.
Well, if I can make a comment here, being an occupational therapist, with in the field of rehab, I don't think it's exclusive to the ophthalmic population. I would consider it, that the lack of knowledge that MDs in any specialty have about rehab leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, you're right.
Very good.
Both that and the public health aspect of our specialty, both are weaknesses of medical education.
Yeah, great talk. Thank you so much. I had the opportunity to actually visit both your tertiary low vision center and the innovation center, and very impressive work that you guys are doing at LV Prasad. I was wondering, how do you guys provide these services? I bet there's a whole group of people that cannot afford to pay for these services. And then how about providing devices for people who can't afford? What is the system that you have to be able to support? I mean, you have an amazing network, sounds like, right down to the primary level in the villages in 4 states around you. But how do you afford to provide this care, especially the vision rehab part of it?
Go ahead, Beulah.
Dr. Deepa, Dr. Deepa, you may be knowing the system that we follow in LV Prasad of the paying and the non-paying system. Like people from poor economic background, they need not pay for any services that is applicable for the rehabilitation care as well. And we are very fortunate to have a chairman like Dr. Rao. As far as for the rehabilitation services, even if a person is coming under the paying category for the medical treatment, when they are coming for the low vision rehabilitation care, we have the liberty of converting that person as the non-paying. Meaning to say they need not pay for any services, means it may be the training, the comprehensive early intervention training or the low vision assessment. So we don't charge them for the training. And the question that you asked regarding how we are managing distributing the devices. So here again, like thanks to our volunteers, as I mentioned, that they are truly our source of strength. Like, if we just post a request, we have a group created for them. We just post a request in the group saying like so-and-so person needing to buy a device costing so much, so-and-so. Immediately we see a response, somebody's coming forward and then helping. Other than that, a lot of corporates, they are coming forward. Last year we got grant support from this Charity Aid Foundation, and then this year we got support from Globus corporate. So like that, year after year, so many people are coming forward. So that way, until now, we are able to meet the needs of our clients, right from the optical, non-optical, or early intervention training material. In fact, last year we supported the surgery for one of our early intervention kids, so who requires an ortho surgery. The total surgical cost was about 3 lakhs. But then, the generous support that volunteers came forward to help, so the child is able to walk. I don't think that funding is a problem. Like, as long as they see like what services are happening and they see like, the impact directly themselves, I think we are able to, meet the needs of our clients that way.
Essentially, Deepa, 3 mechanisms. One is support from the clinical services. Second is philanthropic money. Third is grants from both national and international organizations. Through these 3 approaches, we are able to offer support to all people who can't afford to pay for our services.
Yes. And Dr. Jienga, if I can just follow on with one comment, the question about tertiary, how many tertiary centers, that is actually VisionAid's mission, is to create more and more tertiary centers. At this point, we actually are operating in 10 locations. Mm-hmm. And that includes the Arvind Eye Hospital, Shankara Netralaya, CECF Pune. Yeah. And what we are doing is working with each of those partner organizations to see what they already have. Everyone has some pieces running, and then we are trying to fill in the other pieces to kind of, create that holistic service.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the space that is our focus, and we covered that last time. I can send you a recording.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so we are trying to fill that niche to create tertiary centers where they don't exist. And in some
Yeah.
cases, some parts of it exist, and we're trying to fill in the gaps and make it holistic and complete.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the
Yes,
audience?
can I speak? MS Raju here.
Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. J.N. Rao and Beulah. I'm MS Raju of Vision Aid Visakhapatnam.
Yes,
I've
sir.
got something like a comment. I see Beulah was mentioning of collaborative approach in solving or spreading the mission. So here we are in Visakhapatnam. We are quite advanced making job enabling education. So we will be very grateful if LV Prasad finds any persons requiring job enabling education or job enabling advice to be referred to us. We don't charge any money, just like you. And in fact, you have 20 years of experience and we have 15 years. Therefore, pulled together, we can make people, large number of people, job enabled. We're already doing it. So kindly keep this in mind. We have programs like up to diploma level and also of special training programs for banking services and things like that. Kindly refer candidates to us. And if necessary, you can let's say, we will create some funds for them and we don't charge any money. We are in Visakhapatnam and also in other locations as Ram mentioned. Finish. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, Raji Garu, it's long time that I have visited your organization again. Definitely, I'll make it a point. At least our team to visit, and then so definitely we'll collaborate, and then we do more programs.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I think we are now approaching, actually past the 11 p.m. mark here. So I would like to now invite our chairman, Mr. Puran Dang, and along with him is his beautiful wife, Mrs. Kamlesh Dang. Puranji is a kind of is like a father figure for Vision Aid, and for us, Rethi and myself as well. And I'd like to request Mr. Purandang to say a vote of thanks and a few words before we close.
Thank you, Ram. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Raoji and Dr. Beulah Christie, so grateful, such an enlightening presentation is eye-awakening that how much you are doing at LV Prasad Institute. So many services, so many topics that you are handling over there. You both are role model for service. You are role model for your intellectual height and inspiring life, which is a bliss. We are very proud of our motherland, which gave us people like you who are serving the community in a real, basic way to help the people with low vision and impaired vision. Your talk is not only inspiring, but also very educative, personally for me. We at Vision Aid are blessed, and we will always look to you for your guidance and advice to meet our goal to help as many people with impaired vision as possible. Helen Keller, the most famous blind lady, wrote once that alone we can do very little, but together we can do so much. So today's talk has generated in me that saying of Helen Keller that institute like yours and our organization and so many other institutes in India, if there can be a channel of collaboration, I think wonders can be done. And I can see Dr. Rao and Dr. Christie that You are doing a lot in getting the community engaged. Dr. Rao, the list of honors which have been bestowed on you all over the world just touch our heart. That what you are doing, that you were leading the World Health Organization Committee on Blindness. My brother retired from there in your New Delhi World Health Office. You might have seen that. And after 40 years of service, I am very most grateful to you and Dr. Christie for your time and for your amazing presentation. MS Raju ji, who planted this tree of Vision 8, and our US founders, Ram Raju, Revati Ramakrishnan, and our President Ali Rizvi, we are all very grateful to you. And we will always remember your talk and stay in touch with you so that this line of communication may become a blessing for us. Thank you very much, Dr. Rao and Dr.
Thank you so much, Puranji, for delivering that wonderful vote of thanks. I think you summed up how we all feel. And once again, Dr. G.N. Rao Garu, Dr. Beulah Christie, thank you so much for the very enlightening talk and for the warm words. It was an honor for all of us to have you here.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Learned so much from the leaders in the space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.